Welcome to a deep dive. South Korea is gearing up for a pretty sudden presidential election, isn't it? Happening very soon, June 3rd, 2025.
Yeah, it really came out of the blue for many. Triggered, of course, by former President Yoon-seok's impeachment late last year, that whole controversial martial law declaration really shook things up.
It definitely did. And interestingly, amidst all that political turmoil, something else has really surfaced as, well, a central campaign issue. Cryptocurrency.
It's quite surprising how prominent it's become, really.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to unpack the source material we've got, this detailed news analysis, and really understand why crypto is such a big deal this time. We want to look at, who the main players are, the candidates, and what exactly they're proposing for the crypto space.
And I think what you'll find quite striking, digging into the sources, is how it's moved beyond just being a youth issue. That seems to be a key shift.
Yeah, the analysis really highlights that transformation. I mean, policies that maybe seemed aimed at younger voters in past elections, now they're framed as major economic, social, and, political issues hitting multiple generations.
It feels like the political world there has really woken up to it. The head of the Blockchain Research Center is quoted saying politicians are actively weaving crypto into their main campaign agendas now.
Right. And why now? What's driving that?
Well, the analysis points to a few things. The big shift to a digital economy, obviously, but also increasing demands for transparency, people seeing potential in blockchain tech itself, and, crucially, this growing, almost urgent need for better investor protection, given how volatile things can be.
Makes sense. It sounds like it's just unavoidable now, a mainstream concern.
Exactly. And the sources suggest public perception might be changing too, moving maybe from skepticism towards something more neutral. Or pragmatic, perhaps, people looking at it more objectively.
That probably tracks with just how many people are involved now, right?
I think so. When you've got millions of citizens holding crypto, politicians, well, they have to respond.
Okay, so let's talk about those politicians. Who are the main candidates we need to know about, and what's their general vibe on crypto?
Right. The sources zero in on three main contenders. There's Jae-myung from the Democratic Party. Then Moon-soo, he's representing the People Power Party. And Jun-seok leading the Reform Party.
And the really interesting thing, the analysis stresses this, is that all three of them, the frontrunners, have put forward crypto-friendly proposals.
Yeah, that's the key takeaway. They're all promising, maybe in different flavors, but promising to support and kind of advance the local crypto scene.
That really tells you something about how central this issue has become. It's gone from maybe a side topic to a core platform issue.
Absolutely. It's a must-address topic now on the national stage in South Korea.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds a bit. What specific policies are they actually talking about? Globally, spot Bitcoin ETFs have been huge news. Is that part of the conversation there?
Oh, definitely. And it's a big one. Legalizing spot Bitcoin ETFs is actually a key campaign pledge for two of them, Jae-myung and Moon-soo.
Following the U.S. lead, presumably.
Yeah, it seems heavily influenced by that momentum, especially the U.S. approving them early in 2024.
And the logic behind pushing for it in Korea, the sources mention demand from older investors.
Exactly. The head of a financial industry association is quoted pointing to that. Rising demand among older investors. And the idea is that ETFs could offer a safer, more regulated way to get exposure compared to just buying Bitcoin directly off an exchange.
So it's pitched as both good for the market and good for protecting investors.
That's the argument. But there's a pretty significant roadblock. South Korea's main financial law, the Capital Markets Act, it doesn't currently recognize crypto as eligible assets for things like ETFs.
Ah, okay. So the politicians might want it, but the law needs changing first. Is anyone working on that?
Well, the Financial Services Commission, the FSC, they're reportedly looking into it, reviewing legal pathways.
Yeah.
But one quote in the analysis kind of sums it up. South Korea might end up following the U.S. rather than leading on this, just given those legal hurdles.
Right, makes sense. Okay, what about the crypto exchanges themselves? The sources mentioned some pretty tight banking rules currently.
They did. Yeah, the current setup mandates that crypto exchanges have to partner up with licensed banks if they want to offer services using Korean won.
Yeah.
Deposits, withdrawals.
And that's created a bottleneck.
Pretty much. It's resulted in this situation where only 5 platforms actually have those crucial bank partnerships. It's kind of a near monopoly.
And that limits things, right? Like companies can't easily participate, and users need specific bank accounts linked to their legal identities.
Correct. So both Lee Jae-myung and Moon-soo have actually put pledges in their platforms to try and ease those specific banking rules, potentially open things up a bit more.
Interesting. Okay. Another hot topic seems to be stablecoins, particularly a clash between Lee Jae-myung and Lee Jun-seok.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Lee Jae-myung has put forward this specific proposal, launching a stablecoin pegged to the Korean one. The idea being to reduce reliance on stablecoins issued elsewhere, like U.S. dollar ones.
But Lee Jun-seok isn't buying it.
Not at all. He's pushing back, and his criticism is really rooted in, well, recent painful history. He specifically brought up the collapse of Terra KRW, or KRT. That was another algorithmic stablecoin pegged to the one, part of the whole Terra Luna implosion.
Oof, yeah, that hit Korea hard, didn't it?
Very hard. So Lee Jun-seok is asking some sharp questions about Lee Jae-myung's plan, like, okay, what exactly will back this new stablecoin? How are you going to manage market risks? Crucially, how do you avoid repeating the Terra disaster? He basically called it just a slogan without real safeguards.
And they actually argued about this publicly.
Yeah, the sources mentioned they went head-to-head on it during a live debate. Lee Jae-myung apparently defended the idea, arguing that centralized fiat-backed stablecoins could be safe.
Wow. So you can really see how past failures are directly influencing the current policy debate. It's not abstract at all.
Not in the slightest.
Another area mentioned is play-to-earn gaming, P2E. The sources say these are currently banned.
That's right, still banned under current regulations. And it's interesting because, remember, lifting the P2E ban was actually something former President Yoon promised back in his 2022 campaign.
But it never happened.
Never happened during his time in office.
Now, Lee Jun-seok, the Reform Party candidate, he seems really big on this issue, right?
He does. The analysis reports him calling gaming South Korea's second semiconductor industry, which is quite a statement. He highlighted that gaming made up over a fifth, 20% of the country's exports in 2024.
So he sees huge economic potential being stifled.
Exactly. His pledge is pretty ambitious. He wants South Korea to grab 10% of the entire global gaming market. And he thinks regulatory support is key, helping with taxes, exports, talent development. He argues the current P2E ban is just pushing creative companies and talent out of Korea.
And is there, market momentum behind this debate?
Seems so. The sources mention a recent surge in investor interest in P2E, partly because Nexon, a huge Korean game developer, launched a new game that has its own associated crypto token. So, yeah, it's tied to real-time market activity.
It really shows how interconnected all these different crypto threads are becoming.
Definitely. Gaming, finance, regulation, it's all blending together.
Let's pivot slightly and talk about who is actually in this market, because the sources suggest the investor base itself is changing quite dramatically. That FIU data sounds significant.
Oh, it's very significant. The Financial Intelligence Unit data showed 9.7 million KYC verified crypto investors by the end of 2024. That's Know Your Customer checks completed.
9.7 million, that's a lot of people.
It is. And it represented a 25% jump from just the first half of 2024 alone. Massive growth in 6 months.
Wow. And who are these new investors? Still mostly young people.
Well, the biggest percentage increase was in the 30s age group, up 29%. But importantly, the growth among those in their 40s and those over 50 was also really substantial. 27% and 25% growth, respectively.
Okay, but here's the part that really caught my eye in the analysis. It's about the wealth distribution. Older investors holding significant amounts.
Yes, this is maybe the most crucial shift politically. The FIU found that by the end of 2024, there were 221,000 investors holding at least 100 million won. That's roughly, what, 73,000 US dollars in crypto?
Okay, a decent chunk of change.
Right, and get this. Of that group holding 100 million won or more, a staggering 78%, that's 172,500 of them, were over the age of 40.
78%. Okay, that completely changes the narrative, doesn't it?
It really does.
So crypto policy is suddenly not just about appealing to, tech-savvy millennials or Gen Z. It's a serious economic issue impacting a huge number of middle-aged and older voters, many of whom seem to have significant skin in the game.
Absolutely. And this demographic reality, this concentration of crypto wealth among older individuals, is almost certainly what's turbocharging the demand for those regulated products we talked about, like the ETFs.
It gives a much louder voice to the calls for clear rules and investor safety nets.
Precisely. And remember, this is all happening in a country that's already a global crypto heavyweight. The analysis notes the Korean won was actually the most traded fiat currency against crypto globally in the first quarter of 2024.
Driven mainly by these retail investors we're talking about.
Yeah, largely driven by retail so far. The sources do mention that the big institutional players, the corporations and funds, they're mostly still waiting, watching from the sideline.
Waiting for what? Clearer rules.
Seems like it. They're anticipating this planned pilot trading phase that the FSC is supposed to roll out sometime in 2025.
Yeah.
That could be the signal they're waiting for?
So the market could evolve even further if institutions jump in. Okay, just before we wrap up, where do things stand in the actual election race? The vote is June 3rd. What did the latest polls in the source material show?
Right. Based on a survey from May 23rd to 25th, so pretty recent, Jae-myung had a lead over Moon-soo. It was about 44.9% to 35.9%.
Okay, a noticeable gap. And Jun-seok.
He was further back at 9.6%. Although the source did note that his support seemed to be picking up some steam in the week before that poll was taken.
So Jae-myung is ahead, but maybe things are still shifting a bit. And clearly crypto is an issue all three feel they need to engage with seriously.
No doubt about it. It's become a key battleground in this election.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What this deep dive really shows us is this rapid, almost startling evolution of crypto in South Korean politics. It's gone from maybe a fringe topic, something seen as mainly for younger generations, to this absolutely central, unavoidable issue.
And that shift seems fundamentally driven by the sheer growth and, importantly, the diversification of the investor base. You now have this significant cohort of older investors holding substantial wealth in digital assets, and that changes everything politically.
Yeah. And we've looked at the different ways the candidates are trying to respond. They're all proposing things, but with different angles, legalizing ETFs, maybe easing bank rules, the really contentious debate over a Korean won stablecoin.
And that push, particularly from Jun-seok, to rethink the ban on play-to-earn gaming. It's clear they're all wrestling with this tough balancing act. How do you protect investors and create clear rules while also trying not to stifle innovation in a potentially huge industry?
It feels like this snap election, coming after all that political drama, has just forced these crypto questions right to the forefront in a major global market. The outcome on June 3rd could really signal South Korea's direction, couldn't it? Are they going to lean towards cautious regulation, maybe push for bolder innovation, or, risk repeating some of the problems we've seen elsewhere?
It definitely sets up an interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. As countries all over the world try to figure out their relationship with crypto, how might South Korea's choices after this election, especially how they navigate that tension between investor protection and fostering growth, how might that echo or maybe even influence what happens far beyond their own borders? Something to keep an eye on as the results come in.